Welcome to VidZet. I'm Dr. Ted Noel. In this issue of our podcast, I'm going to talk about two basic items. I'm going to talk about the American Health Care Act, but before that, I'm going to talk about the continuing resolution on the budget. It's often been said that watching Congress make laws is much like watching sausage being made. You like the result, but you really don't want to watch it be made. In this case, I'd say that the continuing resolution and the American Health Care Act aren't like making sausage. They're like making haggis. And what comes out may very well be something you don't want. For example, the continuing resolution is 1,227 pages. That's an awful lot of stuff. And whether you believe that it does one thing or does the opposite really depends on who you've been listening to and what their spin on the subject is. So the first thing we have to look at is, what is the continuing resolution? Basically, this is a hangover from Obama's last budget year. In essence, the Republicans tried to appropriate money, didn't get enough through. Obama vetoed some stuff, and it was just a mess. The Democrats stood in the way. And ultimately, rather than getting clean bills, we're going to have a defense funding bill, we're going to have an education funding bill, or whatever else, you get this big, massive thing which is designed to keep the government running. And it's horrible. There's all kinds of ugly stuff in it. And because it's in a must-pass, we got to do it in 3 days thing. Oh, we didn't know about this 6 months ago. It ends up being a mess. So it really depends on who you read. For example, if you read the Democratic side on the budget bill, they think, oh, they won everything. Nobody blocked money for Planned Parenthood. Well, guess what? That's called spin. And as Bill O'Reilly commonly says, the spin stops here. The actual language of the bill does not mention Planned Parenthood, but and so the Democrats are celebrating because it doesn't say no money can go to Planned Parenthood. What it really says is, here's money for women's health. And the Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services, that's Tom Price, gets to determine where the money goes. Now count on it, Tom Price is probably not going to allow any money to go to Planned Parenthood. That's still going to create a problem on the left, but the Democrats can claim victory for their base. We didn't block funding for Planned Parenthood, even though it comes out of Tom Price. Of course, if Tom Price decides to send some money to Planned Parenthood, then we got a Republican who's acting like a Democrat. He is a Republicrat. And as happens in D.C., they're in a bubble, they are co-opted by the beast, they become part of the swamp, and it's a bad deal. Now, let's look at some of the good stuff in the bill. For example, no matter how you count it, there is at least $21 billion increase for defense spending. Now, given what Trump has already done in terms of the price of F-35s, chances are this is actually going to do pretty well. But $21 billion is a down payment on what we need if we're going to properly defend the United States. It's very clear Obama didn't like the military. He wanted us to be one state in the United States of the world, and as a result, he was killing our military. You know, it's not that I like to go kill people. I don't. I just don't want them to come kill me. The Veterans Administration gets some improvements. Now, this is one place where both sides actually realized there were good things to do. The biggest part of the improvements has to do with their dispute resolution process, which can take up to 5 years right now, and they did some things to cut that down. I'm sure there's more to come. There was also money in it for coal miners' health programs. That is, we're dealing with black lung. Now, whether the government should be involved in funding these programs at all is a different question. But some of these things are probably pretty decent. Now, we're going to talk about the American Health Care Act after the break.
Hi, I'm TV talk show host, political analyst, and national spokesman Josh Bernstein. I want to tell you guys about an amazing group known as the Association of Mature American Citizens, or AMAC for short. AMAC is the conservative alternative to AARP. We are a seniors-based organization for seniors 50 years of age and older. We have all the same types of products and services an AARP would have. The only difference is, when we lobby on behalf of our members and Congress, it is to give more power, more control, and more freedom to seniors and their health care decisions. So please check us out at www.amac.us. Again, that is amac.us, or call toll-free 888-262-2006. Again, 888-262-2006. Tell them that you heard Josh Bernstein, their national spokesman, talking about them anytime you see this video, and we will give you a free membership. That's right, folks, a free membership just for mentioning this video. Call us at 888-262-2006 or find us on the web at amac.us.
Welcome back. The American Health Care Act is the Obamacare repeal and replace that didn't get through, was pulled, and now they're chewing on it again. And remember, they're not even making sausage, they're making haggis. The Republicans got re-elected on the promise to repeal Obamacare and then put something in that makes sense. We talked about what that means. That means you say the public law number, which is Obamacare, is hereby repealed. It's gone. You simply get rid of it. Then you put new things in, such as the ability to buy health insurance across state lines, the ability to add people to ad hoc groups so you can have group purchasing for your neighborhood association. And we've talked about all of these things, and in detail we talked about them in the video on Rand Paul's healthcare plan, which I gave an A+, and frankly, go back and watch it again. It's very, very good plan. But what we have is a bunch of Republicans who said, yes, we're going to repeal it. They had passed a bill when they knew Obama wouldn't sign it, but now they won't even think of passing the bill because, oh my goodness, we were able to make a symbolic vote, but when it comes for us to stand up for something, we're not going to do it. The Mitchell Trio had a little ditty years ago which went something like this. You're paid to stop a bullet. It's a soldier's job, they say. And so you stop the bullet, and then they stop your pay. Should I write a letter to my congressman? Each congressman has got two ends, a sitting and a thinking end, and since his whole success depends upon his seat, why bother, friend? I think that describes most of what happens in Washington. My recent Republican Congressman, John Micah, lost his re-election bid. And I was not unhappy that a Democrat won, not because she was a Democrat, but rather because John Micah was a rhino. He had ceased to do anything substantially conservative. I had been on a call-in show, and his discussion was something called Sunrail for Central Florida. Now, in Central Florida, we have what's called the I-4 corridor, and I-4 now is undergoing a massive program called the Ultimate I-4 Project, which takes 6 years and God knows how much money. But they said, we're going to put in a light rail system. There's already a rail line that runs here. We'll throw some stations on it, and it'll take a whole lot of traffic off of I-4. Well, this is a classic public works project. Look at me. I brought this program to this area. I did these good things. And well, I called in and said, Mr. Micah, why are you supporting a program that's going to be a money pit? You drop money, it's just a hole in the ground you drop money into. Every mass transit program has always failed to pay its own way. There's not a single one that makes a dime, and they never carry enough people to free up the highways. Even the metro in D.C., while it carries a fair number of people, and I've ridden it, it's pretty nice, doesn't carry enough people to matter. Oh no, and he starts blathering on about it's going to bring this much business and that much business and, whatever else. He just absolutely ignored the fact that it was a boondoggle. Well, it's in place now, and it's a boondoggle. It runs half full. It doesn't carry its own weight. It's a drag on our taxpayer money. And this is what what every legislator does. I want something with my name on it, something I accomplished, and I don't give a damn about you. You don't matter. Your only purpose is to make sure that I come back to Washington to do my things so that I'm important. Well, we reelected them to eliminate Obamacare, not to tinker with it. And let's take a look at what's going on. Like I said, what you hear depends on who you're listening to. And for example, if you listen to the AARP spin on it, it destroys health care for elders. Actually, it does no such thing. There is a community rating scale in it, which says that if you are in a group where it's you have more illness, you can be charged more, but they put a cap on it. It's a price control. Anybody who knows what happened to price controls on gasoline in the 1970s knows that price controls create shortages. Well, they said the most you can charge different between healthy and sick older is 3-to-1. Well, it turns out that the actual cost difference is somewhere in the 5 or 5.5-to-1 range. That means the older people are getting a huge deal. They're getting a subsidy at the expense of the young people who don't need it. Remember the law of subsidy. When you subsidize something, you're going to get more of it. It's going to get more expensive. So what happens? All the sick people sign up. And what happens to premiums? They skyrocket. Instead of saving $2,500 a year, the average increase across the country is almost $4,500 a year. That's on the order of $7,000 a year more for Obamacare. That's insane. The law of subsidy went. If, on the other hand, we were to say we're going to simply get rid of the community rating rule and let the insurance companies figure out how much it really costs and what's necessary to do business, all of a sudden premiums could come down a whole lot for the young people. They'd go up some for the older folks, but they would just go back where they were. But there's, oh no, it destroys health care for the elders. No, what's happened is because insurance companies can't afford the sick people, they're pulling out. Half of Tennessee, roughly, will not have Obamacare providers next year. Large parts of Arizona won't. You can run the country. In Arizona, in order to cover every county this year, there was some arm twisting and special deals were pulled off. That's not going to work for next year. We can keep going. It doesn't work. Obamacare is truly in a death spiral. But AARP says you do this and you actually reestablish what's called underwriting, and you're going to kill healthcare. No. AARP wants single payer. They want Medicare for everybody. And unfortunately, I'm stuck on Medicare. And Medicare is the company. Actually, they're not a company. They contract out to companies. But Medicare is the agency that denies more healthcare claims than any other healthcare agency. No private healthcare company denies nearly as much care as Medicare does. And of course, remember, we do Medicare for all. We're going to get VA for all, which means you're going to die waiting for care. But they say, okay, what about underwriting for current health? Okay, that's good. But suppose somebody has a pre-existing condition. AARP claims it's going to destroy it. Well, if you read the Cato Institute review on it, it's a little more balanced. And in essence, what you have is a change in the mandate where states can apply to opt out of the mandate. And they can set up their own stuff. Well, there's two problems with it. One is it's discretionary. Tom Price can decide to give it or not, and I'll come back to that in a minute. The other part is that because the mandates require all sorts of things, in particular pre-existing conditions, you have to find a way where pre-existing conditions are covered. So the bill actually sits there and says pre-existing conditions are required to be covered. And you can do it one of two ways. You can either subsidize it, or you can set up what are known as high-risk pools. 35 states had them before Obamacare. We've talked about them before. They work. They're cheaper than anything in Obamacare. But guess what? They don't leave control in Washington. Ultimately, though, the problem here is that this still maintains community rating. And when you have the sick buying more and the healthy buying less, you end up with a failure due to the law of subsidy. Finally, this bill once again exempts Congress. I'm sorry, that is bad news. Congress needs to be forced into Obamacare, pure and simple. Once the congressional staff has to do this, the Congress critters are going to hear so much complaint from their staff. There's going to be no way for them not to repeal it. And oh, by the way, waivers, I had stumbled on that. Waivers will not be actually available for an extra year. That means prices are going to keep going up next year, and the Republican Congress is going to get the blame, even though the Democrats did it in the first place. They designed a system that would fail, so the fix is single payer. That could still be what happens. We really need Rand Paul's plan. We need the president to get up and talk to these people one-on-one and say, look, you guys passed this other bill. Give me that bill. Add Rand Paul's stuff to it. Let's do what you promised. Because if you don't, your public will throw your ass out. Pardon my French, but there it is. This is bad news. They're not making sausage. They're making haggis. And unless you are, Scottish, you're not going to like it. I'm Dr. Ted Noel. Thanks for listening.